I woke up that morning with a flutter in my chest, a mixture of excitement and unease. It was Auntie Linda's 60th birthday, a milestone she deserved to celebrate with laughter and love. But the tension in our family group chat made my stomach knot. The messages weren't just greetings, they carried a subtle undertone, a whisper of plotting, of someone trying to steal the day. Downstairs, preparations were underway. The smell of fresh flowers and faint perfume of baked goods should have been comforting, but instead, I caught fragments of hushed conversations, relatives leaning toward each other, murmuring with the kind of sly glee that makes you shiver. I realized almost instantly that someone was orchestrating a subtle sabotage. Then I saw her, Diane, Auntie Linda's longtime rival, hovering near the kitchen, smirking as she whispered instructions to her friends. Every flick of her hand, every calculating glance screamed anticipation. I felt a sharp chill. Diane was coordinating the birthday mishap, and every little detail mattered to her. The first act of humiliation hit like a sucker punch. The custom cake, which had been designed with months of thought and love, had been replaced with a cheap, stale version. Guests noticed immediately. A polite chuckle turned into a ripple of awkward laughter. I saw the way Auntie's eyes flickered toward it, trying to mask disappointment, but the hurt was there. The invitations had been lost. A few of her closest friends, the ones she had been counting on, arrived late or not at all. Each empty chair felt like a small betrayal. Diane's face lit up every time a familiar guest walked in. Late, flustered, missing the first toasts, missing the moment meant to honor Auntie. Then came the verbal strike. Diane didn't hold back. During brunch, she leaned forward, voice loud, cutting through the murmurs, criticizing Auntie's outfit. Her words weren't casual, they were designed to sting. The waiter paused, glancing at Auntie. Guests stiffened. Auntie's shoulders tensed, but she forced a laugh. I could see the tremor in her voice, a tiny crack in the armor she'd been perfecting for decades. Humiliation piled up in a series of small, deliberate cuts. A spilled drink here, a mismatched gift there, someone circulating an old, embarrassing story about Auntie's early career. Each act seemed minor alone, but together they created a storm. I watched her absorb it all with grace, trying to smile, but my chest tightened. Her dignity was being chipped away in front of friends, family, co-workers, everyone who mattered. I wanted to scream at the injustice. I wanted to stop it immediately. But instead, I felt a slow, searing anger build, a determination that this story wasn't over. This day may have been hijacked, her pride tested, her joy stolen for a few cruel moments, but it would not end like this. I made an internal vow, the kind that burns quietly but relentlessly. Whatever Diane thought she had won today, whatever humiliation she thought she had inflicted, it was only the beginning. The story of Auntie Linda would be rewritten, and when it was, no one would forget it. I remember Auntie Linda's younger years as if they were yesterday. She was a force of nature in a male-dominated corporate world, tackling projects that others dismissed as too ambitious for a woman. She poured herself into every detail, every pitch, every plan, only to face betrayal by a mentor who claimed her breakthrough idea as his own. The sting of that first real injustice never left her. It became a quiet fire she carried beneath her calm exterior. Family gatherings carried their own subtle wounds. Cousins who should have stood by her instead favored Diane, their laughter masking veiled criticism. Over decades, those subtle jabs, "Oh, Linda always takes things too seriously," or "She's fine, but Diane just has that spark," built into a chorus of doubt she had to navigate constantly. I could see it in her face at every holiday, every dinner, every casual meeting. Even in my own childhood, Auntie was my anchor. When I failed, when I fell short of expectations, she was there, quietly steady, offering words that healed without pride or ego. She taught me resilience, showing me that strength isn't always loud. Yet in giving so much, she bore the hidden weight of endless sacrifices. She hid tears to shield others from pain, bore insults to preserve harmony, and carried burdens no one acknowledged. The trauma ran deeper than I had understood at first. Diane's family had systematically undermined Auntie's social events. Small acts of sabotage, whispered rumors, manipulated invitations, all designed to make her doubt her worth. Each public slip, each awkward moment reminded her of those earlier betrayals. Her financial struggles in earlier years only added to the invisible pressure. She built everything from scratch, paying her dues, working nights, strategizing her way up, and yet her efforts were often overlooked, downplayed, or dismissed. I can still recall the sting of those old injustices as vividly as today. The cold stares when her ideas were praised for someone else's credit, the whispered criticisms at networking events, the hollow victories no one celebrated. Every triumph felt heavier because it was quietly questioned, every smile edged with loneliness. Yet her strength remained undeniable. Her perseverance, her meticulous attention to detail, and her strategic mind were forged in the fires of being underestimated and dismissed. She learned to read people, anticipate betrayal, and prepare quietly, always ready for the next challenge. Now, watching her today, enduring Diane's humiliation, I finally understand why this day hits her so deeply. This isn't just embarrassment, it's decades of pain, decades of being minimized and mocked, resurfacing in every sly glance and whispered laugh. Today's slight is a trigger, an echo of every old wound she endured, and the weight of it makes the upcoming reckoning not just justified, but necessary. I began to notice Diane's sabotage escalating with a precision that sent a chill down my spine. Decorations were subtly switched, balloons that should have read "Happy Birthday" twisted into odd angles, banners slightly askew, centerpieces misplaced. The audio system faltered at the wrong moment, the music skipping or stuttering as if rehearsed. Every small failure was deliberate, crafted to make Auntie Linda feel off balance, to chip away at the joy of her day. Guests began murmuring, glancing around with confusion. Some whispered to each other, sensing tension but clueless about its source. The air was thick with unease, a subtle anxiety creeping into the room like smoke. Auntie's frustration, usually so well hidden, began to surface. I saw the flicker in her smile, the brief hesitation in her movements, the slight tremor in her hand as she poured champagne for her friends. She was trying to hold herself together, but every small sabotage left its mark. Diane and her allies exchanged smug glances, certain their plan was flawless. Their satisfaction was palpable, a venomous glee in their eyes, as if watching Auntie unravel was the pinnacle of their achievement. I moved quietly through the room, gathering intelligence, overhearing hushed conversations, observing the timing of each disruption, noting weaknesses in their coordination. Every detail mattered. Every small misstep by them was a clue I would use later. The birthday speech, meant to be Auntie's crowning moment, was hijacked. Diane leaned forward, voice sharp and loud, reducing Auntie's decades of achievements to trivial anecdotes. She laughed lightly at moments meant to honor Linda, turning admiration into discomfort. Oh, the humiliation intensified when a gift designed to embarrass Auntie was revealed publicly. A cheap, mocking trinket displayed on the table drew awkward, stifled laughter from guests. Auntie's jaw tightened, a flash of hurt crossing her eyes. Oh, this is a joke. Tension reached a peak during the cake-cutting ceremony. Auntie reached for the knife, and a small mishap caused the cake to spill slightly. Eyes darted toward her, murmurs rising, almost but not quite, blaming her for the accident. I could see the strain in her posture as she tried to absorb the shock gracefully. Guests began to choose sides subtly. Some hovered near her, offering quiet words of comfort, brushing a hand on her shoulder, whispering assurances. Others lingered, smirking or pretending not to notice, absorbing the spectacle with misplaced amusement. Inside me, fury grew like a slow, boiling fire. Watching someone I loved demeaned, seeing every calculated insult pile on, the anger fed my mind, sharpening my focus. I began plotting the countermove, mapping the precise moment to turn the tide. Auntie's composure cracked for a fleeting second, a tremor that revealed the weight of the emotional stakes. That single moment told me everything. The plan had succeeded in shaking her, but it had also set the stage for retribution. I began to quietly coordinate with allies, subtle gestures and nods, knowing the battle had only just begun. The seeds of revenge were planted, hidden in plain sight, and the night was about to pivot in a way no one, not even Diane, could anticipate. My phone buzzed quietly in my pocket, and when I answered, the familiar, steady voice of our family lawyer cut through the tension. "There's a loophole," he said, "one Diane has exploited before in inheritance disputes. It's subtle, but it's there, and it can work in your favor." My pulse quickened. The pieces of the puzzle clicked into place. Diane's schemes weren't just petty social attacks. They were calculated moves to manipulate wealth and reputation, to weaken Auntie Linda in every possible arena. I realized immediately that the stakes were far higher than I had imagined. This wasn't just about embarrassment or a ruined birthday. This was about control, legacy, and power. And for the first time that day, I felt the tide beginning to turn. Hidden allies emerged unexpectedly, old friends of Auntie Linda who had quietly admired her resilience, people who knew her strength and owed her loyalty. They were willing to contribute to a surprise that would expose Diane's manipulations publicly, to reclaim the narrative for Auntie, and to restore justice without a single cruel word. Auntie Linda, ever composed, confessed her fear. "I don't like confrontation," she admitted, voice low but steady, "but I won't let them take this from me." There was a shift in her posture, a subtle straightening of her spine. The fear didn't disappear, but it transformed into resolve, into a readiness to act with precision and grace. I began coordinating a subtle power shift. Guest seating was adjusted strategically, ensuring that influential family members would witness the revelations at exactly the right moments. Speeches were timed, introductions recalibrated, every small interaction designed to spotlight Auntie's achievements and undermine Diane's carefully crafted facade. In secret, Auntie prepared the return gift with meticulous care. Every ribbon, every card, every detail was deliberate, layered with meaning and anticipation. I watched her from a distance as she worked, the soft lighting casting her features in sharp relief, her hands steady, her eyes focused. Diane, ever perceptive, began to sense the shift. Her confident smirk wavered as she noticed subtle changes in the room, the way conversations pivoted toward Auntie, the small but deliberate gestures from our allies. A flicker of unease crossed her face. Auntie's confidence grew visibly with each passing minute. The calm in her movements, the quiet authority in her voice, it told me she knew the moment of reckoning was approaching and that she was ready to reclaim what was hers. The turning point arrived with a discreet signal from me, a nod, a hand gesture imperceptible to others. Everything was synchronized perfectly. The culmination of careful observation, strategic planning, and loyal allies was about to unfold. The emotional tone settled into a tense calm before the storm. Anticipation mingled with pride, a sense of moral righteousness filling the air. Every breath, every glance, every heartbeat carried the promise of justice poised to transform humiliation into vindication. The moment arrived. The room's chatter dimmed as Auntie Linda unveiled the return gift. Gasps spread like wildfire. It was personalized, elegant, every detail imbued with meaning, and yet it carried a quiet sting, an indirect revelation of Diane's manipulations. The gift spoke volumes without a word, each element exposing the subtle sabotage, the whispered betrayals, the petty cruelties Diane had orchestrated. Receipts, photographs, and messages were displayed with flawless timing, evidence of every small act of humiliation Diane had arranged. Nothing was accusatory, nothing crude, yet the truth was undeniable. The room went still, the weight of exposure hanging in the air like a tangible presence. Diane's smug smile faltered. The confidence she had wielded like a weapon melted into disbelief. Her social domination crumbled silently. mirrored in the incredulous eyes of guests who had once followed her lead. Whispers swept through the crowd, then stunned silence, then applause, tentative at first, then rising, supportive, undeniable. Auntie Linda stood taller, absorbing the affirmation, the validation she had earned over decades of quiet endurance. I felt the satisfaction swell within me, not a cruel, vengeful thrill, but a deep, elegant justice. Every plan executed, every detail orchestrated, had culminated in this moment of triumph. The legal element unfolded seamlessly. Diane's attempts to manipulate property and inheritance were flagged in front of the lawyer present. Every loophole she had exploited, every subtle trick she had relied on, was neutralized in a single, undeniable display of procedural authority. Future threats evaporated under scrutiny. Auntie's voice rose, heartfelt and calm, yet piercing in its sincerity. She spoke of resilience, kindness, and accomplishments long overlooked. Each word carried the weight of her years of endurance, each sentence rewriting the narrative Diane had tried to control. Diane tried desperately to regain control, interjecting, attempting damage control. Her efforts appeared petty, frantic, and futile. Guests noticed. Her allies shifted uneasily, their loyalty faltering as the moral tide turned unmistakably toward Auntie. The subtle victories multiplied. Diane's supporters quietly distanced themselves, aware that the balance had shifted. Auntie's dignity, long chipped at and tested, was restored fully. The party transformed from tense performance to genuine celebration. Laughter filled the air, glasses clinked, soft ambient music enveloped the room, and tears of relief shimmered in eyes that had witnessed too much injustice. The sensory richness of the moment emphasized the magnitude of the reversal. Finally, Auntie glanced at me, eyes glistening with gratitude. No words were necessary. The humiliation of earlier hours had been erased, rewritten into a triumph that was deliberate, poetic, and deeply satisfying. Every stolen moment of dignity reclaimed, every insult countered, culminated in this perfect, emotional climax. The party began to wind down, but guests lingered, still murmuring about the dramatic turnaround they had witnessed. The social dynamics had shifted irrevocably, alliances and perceptions realigned in subtle, permanent ways. Diane retreated quietly. Her influence diminished, her carefully curated reputation now subtly tarnished among mutual friends and family. The confidence she had wielded so arrogantly was replaced by unease, an acknowledgement of defeat without a single public confrontation. I reflected on the quiet victories that had unfolded. Allies were inspired, old grudges reconsidered, and respect for Auntie Linda restored universally. The day had rewritten not only her narrative, but the collective memory of everyone present. Legal matters were finalized discreetly, behind closed doors. Diane's manipulation attempts were documented, every loophole accounted for, ensuring her future interference would be impossible. Justice had been rendered not in spectacle alone, but in unassailable precision. Auntie stood quietly, reflecting on her resilience, the personal strength that had carried her through decades of subtle betrayals, and the profound joy of vindication. Every humiliation endured had been transformed into evidence of her unwavering dignity. I recounted my own transformation through the process, the power of patience, careful observation, and strategic subtlety in achieving justice. The day had reaffirmed the value of planning, timing, and emotional intelligence over impulsive retaliation. Family members approached privately, offering apologies for past indifference and misjudgments. Gratitude flowed toward Auntie for her grace, her intelligence, and the quiet authority she had reclaimed so beautifully. Evening settled over the house with a soft calm. Warm lights bathed the rooms, laughter echoed gently as guests departed, and a serene sense of closure wrapped around every corner. The sensory memory of the night lingered, a reminder of how meticulously justice had been enacted. I reflected on human nature. Malice and envy can be countered, not with anger, but with foresight, dignity, and clever execution. Every slight, every insult, every attempt at control had been transformed into a catalyst for triumph. Revenge, I realized, was not about impulsive retaliation. It was about moral precision, emotional intelligence, and the quiet orchestration of justice so complete that the world could see the truth without a single word spoken against it. I faced the camera, the dim evening glow casting long shadows across the room. My voice is calm, but every word carries the weight of emotion, of battles fought and dignity reclaimed. I recount the humiliation Auntie Linda endured, the sly sabotages, the whispered betrayals, the carefully orchestrated public slights, and the patience, the quiet observation, the strategic planning that transformed every insult into an opportunity for triumph. Being underestimated, I explain, is never a weakness. It is a weapon when paired with intelligence, timing, and unwavering composure. Those who try to diminish you may think they have the upper hand, but underestimation can be the catalyst for a comeback so precise it leaves no room for doubt. Flashbacks flicker. Diane's smug smiles, the calculated whispers juxtaposed against Auntie's victorious smile, the stunned reactions of guests, and the silent acknowledgement of her grace and strength. Each moment reinforces the truth. Dignity, subtlety, and strategy outweigh impulsive confrontation every single time. For viewers, I emphasize the practical insight. Observation, meticulous planning, and quiet support networks can turn even the deepest humiliation into vindication. Every small ally, every unnoticed detail, every patient step matters in orchestrating justice with precision. A montage plays in my narration. Auntie laughing freely, guests joining her in genuine celebration, subtle gestures of recognition and respect that mark the triumph as complete. The day's tension dissolves into joy, relief, and moral satisfaction. I close with a reflection. Every slight, every betrayal, every insult is temporary if met with patience, creativity, and a strategic mind. Humiliation is fleeting. The power of measured response endures. I encourage viewers to cherish wisdom, resilience, and the strength of calm, deliberate action. The world may underestimate you, but when you act with foresight, the reversal can be spectacular, undeniable, and deeply satisfying. Soft music rises as evening city lights shimmer in the background. Auntie's smile lingers on the screen, a symbol of quiet, inevitable triumph. Every injustice endured, every slight suffered, now rewritten into a story of grace, dignity, and victory.